Did you know the famous river scene with the T-Rex wasn't created for the latest movie? It was actually written in Michael Crichton's original novel and was even planned for the very first Jurassic Park film, but it got cut. Today, we'll relive that brutal sequence exactly as it was imagined. Grant, Tim, and Lex trapped on a raft, hunted by not one, but two Rexes. Grant rummaged through the junk. He didn't find the raft, but instead, he uncovered a set of rolled-up blueprints, speckled with mold from the damp air, stuffed inside a metal box in the wall. He spread the plans across the floor and studied them for a long time. The maps were detailed topographic charts of the island's main sector, the very place where they stood. According to them, the lagoon narrowed and joined the river they had seen earlier, the same river that curved northward, passing through the aviary sector and continuing on just 800 meters from the visitor center. Grant flipped through the pages, tracing the route to the lagoon. According to the plans, there had to be a large door nearby. Looking up, he saw it, set into a recess in the concrete wall, a door wide enough for a car to pass through. When he opened it, a paved road appeared, leading directly to the lagoon. The road had been dug below ground level, hidden from above, an auxiliary path ending at a pier on the shore of the lagoon. And there, printed clearly across the door, was a sign that read, "Raft Storage." Tim's voice broke the silence as he shouted, "Hey, look at this!" He handed Grant a metal box. Inside, Grant found an air rifle and a canvas bandolier filled with 6 darts. Each one was thick as a finger, marked with the label Moro 709. Grant nodded and told Tim it was good work as he slung the bandolier over his shoulder and tucked the rifle into his belt. Tim eyed the weapon nervously, asking if it was a tranquilizer gun. Grant replied that it probably was. Then Tim asked what had happened to the boat, and Grant answered simply that he thought it was down at the pier.
But what none of them knew was that every step down that hidden road would bring them closer to the sound of something far more terrifying than silence. The 3 of them descended along the auxiliary path. With every step, the walls of earth rose higher on each side, the slope pressing in around them. And then Grant heard it, a deep, rhythmic rumbling, slow, heavy, like the rolling of thunder that never ended. The sound grew louder the further they went, and soon it was joined by another, a constant droning like a swarm of flies. Lex wrinkled her nose and asked if Grant was certain there was a raft at the bottom. He told her it was probable, but the rumble kept swelling, echoing through the narrow path. And at the end of the road, they reached a small concrete pier. And there, Grant froze. The Tyrannosaurus was right there. It sat in the shade of a tree, its massive back resting upright, hind legs stretched forward, eyes half open, yet unmoving. Only its head lifted and fell, in rhythm with the deep rumbling snores that shook the ground. Flies swarmed around its face and gaping jaws, buzzing over blood-stained fangs. Behind it, sprawled on its side, lay the torn carcass of a hadrosaur. Grant realized the monster was asleep. He gestured to Tim and Lex to stay where they were, then stepped forward slowly, out onto the pier, fully in view of the beast. The Tyrannosaurus kept snoring, unmoved. At the far end of the pier, a small wooden shed stood camouflaged in green, blending with the foliage. In silence, Grant slid back the bolt and opened the door. Inside, he saw life jackets hanging from the wall, coils of wire mesh, rolls of rope, and two large rubberized containers strapped tight with flat bindings.
Balsas, inflatable rafts. Grant turned to Lex, who mouthed silently, "No big boat." Grant nodded, "Yes." The Tyrannosaurus stirred, swatting flies from its muzzle with a massive forelimb, but it didn't wake. Grant pulled one of the heavy containers onto the pier and unfastened the bindings. With a hiss, the raft began to expand. The noise cut through the air like a whip crack, unbearably loud to his ears. Grant froze. The dinosaur shifted, its bulk groaning as it moved. Grant braced to run. But then, with a rumbling snort, the massive body slumped back against the tree and it let out a thunderous belch. Lex covered her face in horror. Sweat ran down her temple. Grant dragged the inflated raft along the pier and pushed it into the water, the splash echoing sharply. Still, the Tyrannosaur slept. He tied the rope, grabbed two life jackets, and placed them inside. Turning back, he gestured for the children. Lex shook her head violently. Grant insisted. With a sharp motion of his finger, he ordered her to come. Lex obeyed at last, stepping silently into the raft, followed by Tim. Both slipped on their life jackets with trembling hands. Grant climbed in after them, untied the rope, and pushed away. The raft drifted out into the lagoon, silent, weightless.
The raft drifted silently into the lagoon, gliding across the dark surface of the water. For a moment, there was relief. Lex sat back and let out a long sigh, her body loosening with the weight of fear slipping away. But then, her face tightened. She pressed a hand against her mouth, her body shaking as she tried to hold it in. The sound rattled in her chest. Tim turned to her fiercely, whispering for her to stop, hissing that she always coughed at the worst possible time. Lex shook her head, desperate, pointing to her throat. It itched, it burned. All she needed was a sip of water. Grant rowed steadily, but Tim leaned over the raft, scooped up water in his hand, and offered it to his sister. The splash echoed across the surface of the lagoon like a gunshot. And on the shore, the Tyrannosaurus stirred. It yawned lazily, scratching its muzzle with one massive claw, like a dog scratching behind its ear. Another yawn rumbled out, loud and careless. The beast was waking. Lex made choking sounds, gurgling, trying to suppress her cough, while Tim begged her under his breath to be quiet.
But she couldn't stop. Grant rowed harder, pulling the raft toward the center of the lagoon. Water slapped against the rubber sides, each stroke louder than the last. On the shore, the Tyrannosaurus rose to its feet. Lex whispered in anguish that she hadn't meant to do it, her voice trembling. Grant shouted back that it didn't matter. They were far enough. The Rex didn't know how to swim. But Tim snapped at her, yelling that of course it could swim. Everyone knew dinosaurs could swim. And then, with a thunderous crash, the Tyrannosaurus leapt from the pier, plunging into the lagoon.
Water exploded around its massive body as it surged forward. At first, it seemed to swim, its chest submerged, its head rising high above the surface. But Grant realized the truth. It wasn't swimming. It was walking, striding forward through the shallows.
Only the top of its skull broke the surface now. Its eyes and nostrils glared above the waterline. Its long tail whipped back and forth, propelling it forward, just like a crocodile. The largest crocodile in the world. Grant turned, rowing furiously as the raft cut across the lagoon. The Rex closed the distance, its breath blowing across the water like steam. And then it struck. The Rex threw its head back, jaws wide, and slammed it down against the raft. The rubber floor buckled, the entire boat lifted and spun in a violent wave before crashing back into the water. Lex screamed, clinging to the edge, begging Grant to do something. Grant grabbed the tranquilizer rifle, aiming desperately as the Rex lunged again. The dart shot out, glinting in the light, striking deep into the monster's cheek.
The Rex roared in fury, and then a second roar answered. From the shore, the younger Tyrannosaurus crouched over the hadrosaur carcass, ripping flesh in defiance, claiming the kill as its own. The adult Rex turned, its rage snapping instantly toward the intruder. It spun in the water, abandoning the raft, and surged back to shore. The young Rex tore at its meal, then fled as the adult stormed after it, water streaming from its massive frame. On the raft, the three huddled together, drifting northward as the current carried them away. The roars faded into the distance, the jungle swallowing the sound. Grant collapsed on his back, chest heaving, unable to catch his breath. Tim asked if he was all right. Grant muttered that from now on, they had to do exactly as he said. Grant sighed, too tired to argue, and closed his eyes as the raft drifted with the current into the river.